Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and we're with Richard Chandler here at the Long Strange Trip podcast. And today we're going to be talking about reinvention and retirement. It's a topic that I think is a really big one and one that we don't always do a good job of taking care of. So instead of me yammering on about what we're going to talk about, let's bring Richard on so we can actually talk about it. Hey, Richard, how are you today?
Very good, Josh. Good
Thank
to
you.
be here. Good to see you again.
Yes, thank you for being on the show. So, um, why don't you give me a little bit of background about what you've done and what you're doing and what you're reinventing yourself into?
Gladly. It's a long, strange trip starting more at the beginning. I had an interest in music when I was a kid. I played in a rock and roll band when I was a kid,
Oh,
and
really? What
so
type of music did you play?
it was like it was a bunch of white guys doing rhythm and blues.
Oh,
In
okay.
hindsight, oh, I don't know how we even pulled that off, but it was a lot of fun because I was 15 years old and in bars, and I thought that was pretty cool. And back then, when I was 15 years old, people didn't pay much attention to the fact that a 15-year-old was in a bar playing, and I could have a beer too if I wanted. Once
Yep.
in a while, I did, and I had to be careful because I wasn't very good at holding that alcohol. I haven't gotten much better over the years either. Anyway,
Okay.
so I did that. I ended up going to music school for the first part of my career. I basically I had a health issue and I had to stop. I had to stop before, like in the middle of my senior year, and I couldn't get back to it financially because then I got married, kids, had a career. So I got in the insurance business because somebody said, well, you can always sell insurance. And I couldn't think of anything better at the time. So that's what I did. After a while, it occurred to me that I was more interested in keeping things from going wrong, in other words, risk management, than I was to financing things after they went wrong. So I was interested in risk management, did that for a few years, and taught the technical side of insurance and risk management. Then I took a completely different change in my career. I became a natural health care practitioner, which is a very strange thing to do. And I had no idea that's what I was going to do, but somehow I did it. I had a 25-year career in it. And the last 8 years of the career, my wife and I both decided to go back to school, finish our 4-year degrees that we hadn't done, and get a master's degrees in psychotherapy, which we both did. And we did that, finished that up around age 61.
So you've been through a lot of transitions already.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so can you talk to some that were easy and some that were hard to do?
They were all challenging economically because my need for cash flow remained constant. And so I literally had to build one career while I did another one. So, for instance, the last 6 years of the natural healthcare practitioner career, I was also launching counseling psychotherapy, a lot of couples counseling, things with like Myers-Briggs with assessments and career. I did all that concurrently. And then till finally I was able to, the last, well, I stopped doing it 8 years ago completely. And then I started building then from psychotherapy to business partners and executive coaching, which is primarily what I'm doing now for livelihood.
So you were doing two transitions at the same time.
Yes, I did that throughout my career.
Right. And talk a little bit about that. Where were the challenges and where were the successes?
The challenges were managing my time well enough and my energy well enough and cash flow, as I said before. And the successes were that I was able to pull it off. I was able to continue over time allocating more and more time to what I was going toward and less time to what I was doing, but maintaining enough of the cash flow from the goodwill and the business I built before. So it was a smooth transition financially, smooth enough. And I'm doing the same right now as you and I visited about. I'm back to music again. I'm a composer, classical music. I do play saxophones and perform my own music to some extent, but mostly I write for other people, other musicians. And I'm doing that now. And yet my business now is supporting that financially. I'm enjoying my business with business partners counseling, executive coaching, and some psychotherapy. But I'm doing that again. I found that it's worked well for me. And it's an interesting way to go because I don't feel like I don't know what I will do when I retire. I mean, I'm just going into my next career, which would be like my retirement career, which would be music.
So it appears to me it's like you're in the psychotherapy business, the couples counseling business stuff. You're actually moving towards ending of that portion of your life, and with the music, you're you're past anticipation, and you're probably into what we call the messy middle, or we'll just say the messy middle. That's a good
Yeah.
enough term. And, you're going one way, then you go another way, then you go another way, then you go another way, and you go another way. And it kind of feels like you've got 14 arrows facing you all at the same time.
Sometimes, some days for sure. Yeah.
Right.
And my transition actually is I am actually transitioning less and less psychotherapy, couples counseling, individual so it's really three, and then into business partners counseling. I'm doing mostly that and executive coaching now. And then from that, I'll be transitioning more and more into music. I mean, I'm doing music right now. I'm having pieces being performed and writing new pieces and going to conferences and things with music. But it's about maybe 15-20% of my time right now.
Yep. So when you look at it becoming 100% of your time, what's the steps you expect you'll be taking?
I expect that I will have more and more of my team in place, which is my son, who I have a partnership with, and my team. And so the intellectual property that I built up, other people can do it. In other words, other people could actually do that, the actual coaching of business partners counseling. Probably executive coaching, maybe not so much. There's more people that can do that, but this is a very specific set of skills. I have other people that can do that, and we'll have other coaches to do that. I'll feel like my legacy and that will continue because the work will go on, but it will go on without me.
So it's challenging to do partners counseling because let's talk about a scenario which I see happen a lot.
Yeah.
You have one partner or two partners that are 60 years old and looking down at retirement, and there's another partner that's 35 or 40 years old. And those 60-year-old partners expect the 40-year-old partner to pay them enough money to ride off into the sunset,
I know.
whether the business can afford it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have two people or three people at very, very different places.
Yes. Yes. And that does affect things. And your podcast is really about that, is to really look at those dynamics much more specifically and intelligently so people can actually make better decisions because they have a more realistic outlook of what's really happening rather than what they might think is happening.
Well, I think I've done this. I've been through more than one of these sort of transfers. And what I find is that the senior members often have a very unrealistic opinion of what the business is actually worth.
Absolutely. I find the same thing.
And the junior partner has a better sense of what the business is worth.
Yes, because the junior partners continue asking this question: would I be better off just to doing this on my own versus buying something that's overpriced?
And we've done this a couple of times with businesses. I mean, it's really easy to do it with a professional service company. It's not so hard to do with a manufacturing or service company because you got all these, hard assets and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So what happens when you have the elder partners who are adamant about getting paid a ton of money, and the junior partner is just as adamant about not? How do you deal with that?
That's why it takes an outside person. So I'm sometimes the outside person for that.
Yes.
And it's about telling the junior partner, listen, you're buying an ongoing business. That's worth something more than just the hard assets. It is worth something.
Yeah, well, they generally will recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you tell the older partners, and what you think it's worth is overpriced. It's not worth that much. it's not worth as much as you think it is, because the person could start out on their own, and if you burden them with too much debt or too much, they're not going to be able to run a profitable business anyway.
They're not going to be able to pay you. That's really the problem.
Right. And
Yeah.
so,
So,
yeah, it needs to be good. Often owner financing is a big part of it, and maybe not totally, but a big part of it. And
yeah.
also the amounts and the terms have to be quite reasonable.
That's also true. So let's go back to you,
Yeah.
and talk about where you are right now. You're what, 72 years old?
I'll be 72 in May. I'm
Okay.
so 71. Yeah.
Okay, 71 years old. So you're probably 4 years away from what I'm seeing as the cliff.
Okay.
Have you seen this in the work you've done? People get to be 75 years old, and what they used to be able to do, they can't do anymore.
I would say it differently. I would say that if they're mid 70s and they're looking for a way to not stop completely nor keep doing it at the same pace, and they're in a quandary because they don't know how to do that. And they,
Look,
yeah. So it's can they get realistic that I really don't want to, or have the energy to do it like I did it before, and yet I still want to do it to some extent? Is there some creative way to work with that?
well, the question for me is, can you do something completely different?
Yes.
I mean, that's what you're in the process of doing, is you're going to be moving from doing, partners, consulting to music. And
Yeah.
that's a completely different thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, what I see is that, and this is something I want to do some more testing around. But
Yeah.
what I see is owners, specifically business owners or senior executives,
Mhm.
get to a point in their life where they're they've left their business, they're left their job or whatever it is they're doing,
Mhm.
and they sort of are um, wandering around lost in the world.
Absolutely. I've seen that a lot of times too. Not healthy for them at all.
No, so that's where reinvention comes in.
Yes, sir.
So, since you're a psychologist, we can ask you this question.
Well, let
How
me be
would
clear. Psychotherapist. It's a specific license.
psychotherapist.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask you, what would you be advising people who are kind of lost in the wilderness? They don't have a business to go back to, and they don't have the energy to start all over again, nor do they really want to. Let's just say they're financially independent, so they're not, the money is fine. That's not the issue. The issue is, how do I fill my days?
Yes. Yes. That the best case scenario is they've thought about this before they got to
Well, let's say they
the
haven't thought about it before.
then they have to just absolutely think about it very, very specifically and devote the time to thinking about it. And not to think that playing golf and fishing and hunting more and doing more with the grandkids will fulfill them, because it actually won't. I've seen it happen. They fall apart. They
Yep.
need to have something that's career-like. Whatever. It doesn't have to be what they did. It can be something completely different, but it has to be career-like in that they have a reason to get up and get out of the house and do something different. And unless it's career-like, they're in trouble.
So how would you help them find that career like?
I would help them if they came to me. I would actually do a career assessment. I would do first. I do a sophisticated Myers Briggs, because that's
Mm,
good to do. Maybe if they're with a partner, or a wife, a husband, partner, do that with them too. That's going to help them get along. And then I have them do something called a strong interest inventory. It's a career assessment that helps them to discover sometimes that they may have leanings towards areas they didn't know they had leanings for, like artistic leanings or other leanings. They may assume, just because they've been a very successful business person, that that's all they can do. But it may not be true. So I do those assessments, and I do a lot of interviewing. I do an exercise with people. This is a fun exercise for people that you might want to pass this on to some of your guests. I have them imagine alternative lives. You say, okay, I want you to imagine you have an alternative life. I want it to be like you're not living on Mars. It's not something that's not within the realm of physical possibility, but an alternative life. If you had a completely different life, and let's just pretend you're not at any particular older age right now, don't feel the pressure of that. What would you do for an alternative life? And and people will create an alternative life. I have them create usually three of them, three alternative lives. What they'd be doing, where would they live, what kind of things would they be doing, who would they be hanging out with, what would they do for fun? And when people create these alternative lives, it's tremendously informative for them for what they might want to do.
And do you find that they often go down and do one of those three things?
I've done this exercise primarily when people have not been at that age. And what it has done, though, is help them understand what they can start doing for an avocation or how they can take what they're now doing and build more of that into that. And I've certainly done that for myself. An alternative life I've had for years and years and years has been to be a composer and to perform classical music. And now I'm transitioning into my alternative life. So it can be done, but that's very informative. Between the assessments, a good interview process with somebody who's objective, and alternative lives. That's a real good way to discover them.
So if you're feeling stuck and you're feeling that you're kind of just wandering around the world, I'm assuming you would think make a lot of sense to work with a therapist.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It would make a lot of sense. A therapist. And I would say if you don't have a therapist already lined up, look for a therapist that also has career as part of their skill set, they know about careers and they can talk about careers intelligently, because in essence, even though you're mid-70s, if you want to do this well and stay healthy, you're going to embark on a new career, but the new career is going to be much more exactly what you want and none of what you don't want, unlike the career you've had.
It would seem to me that, well, I'll ask you as a question, not as a statement. Do you find that when people are in retirement and they're putting together an alternative career, that it doesn't have a revenue stream attached to it?
Generally, it does not have much of a revenue stream if it has one at all.
Right.
And if it doesn't need to be, that's fine. So what?
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah.
Well,
we've used
the point is there's a lot of things that we can do in life that are not revenue focused.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not anticipating to make a ton of money being a classical music composer,
Right.
but it does have a revenue stream, and the revenue stream tells me a little bit that people are willing to pay for what I do. Not nearly kind of as much money as what I've been doing, with business partners counseling probably, but they're still willing to pay. So that's good. But if to put my worth on the line for a revenue stream no longer makes sense, for most people that are finished their main career and want to embark on if you will, a hobby career or an application career.
But what should they be focusing on?
What they want. What do I want that's fascinating? What do I want that would be really interesting? What do I want that's going to put me in touch with people that I'd love to be in communication with?
So where does why fit into this?
Then it gets larger for me. It gets larger. We need to look at death, the afterlife, what's important in those cases. I'd love to just tell a little example of my mom.
Sure, please do. I was about to ask you that.
Yeah. So my mom, when she was in her mid-70s, after she finished, or mid-60s, I'm sorry, mid-60s, early 70s, after she finished her career, she wanted to have a college degree. She'd never had a college degree, only high school, and she just wanted it. There was no good reason to have it economically, but she wanted it. She went to a 2-year community college, got a 2-year degree. She was so proud of that. She had so much fun. She went on to get a 4-year degree. And she was just so pleased with that. And she was able from that to learn to write better. She decided then to write a memoir about her life. She did that. I helped her with that. I was editing for her. And then at some point, something switched. She thought, I could do this for other people. And the people she would do for, people that were maybe close to death, and that the families wanted the stories. And she did that for one person, then another person. She probably did about 10, 12 people as a service. She did it free. And boy, did it transform my mom. She
Yeah.
became a better person. She did.
Oh, really? In what
I
way?
think she was less selfish. And not that my mom was selfish. I'm not trying to say she was selfish, but she was a little bit more, she was more self-referential. And when she started doing this for other people, you could just see her just becoming just a much more evolved, more interested in other people than before. It was just a delight to see how she evolved that way.
Cool. How old did she live to till?
Just before age 90.
Okay.
And she did that all the way up to the end until maybe the last half year of life. The last person she finished was a priest. A
Oh, really?
priest that, yeah. And she did his life story. And he
Wow.
was in his 90s.
Wow. So when she wrote these memoirs, how long were they?
Her own was a little longer. It was a regular, like a a fairly
So,
okay book. It'd be maybe
yeah,
3/4 inch thick book. For other people's, she tended to do it in kind of 8.5 by 11 paper, and she'd have
right,
photographs in there too. And so it'd be maybe 30, 40 pages like that, but they're those kind of big pages. I
right.
guess in terms of a book form, maybe 50, 60, 70 pages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she certainly found a good next chapter in her life.
She did. Yeah. She had purpose because it was not just writing her story. That was the first purpose, but to do this for other people. It was very transformative.
Mm.
We could see the change in her. It was really tremendous to see.
So what kind of changes did you see in her?
Well, her interest in other people became much greater.
Oh,
Her
okay.
compassion for other people and what they went through became greater.
Mm-hmm.
And she
Good.
saw that she felt purpose because she was doing something that nobody else was doing for them.
Right.
And the relatives loved her and appreciated that because they now had the stories that
Yeah.
they wouldn't have had otherwise.
Well, I'm sure the family appreciates it.
Oh, yeah, they certainly did. And the person appreciated too, because they wanted to get their stories down, but they didn't know how to do it. So my mom could just interview them and talk with them and write notes, and then she'd
Right.
type it all out. And yeah, she did that.
That's cool. Cool. Well, how old was she when she started doing this?
I would say she started doing this probably in her maybe early 80s,
Okay.
maybe around 80. Yeah.
Yeah. So she did a reinvention of herself,
Yes.
and
As
she became
a writer. She
yeah,
became a writer.
she became a happier person.
Yes, she did. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the keys that we might want to be thinking about is if you can reinvent yourself with purpose,
Absolutely.
probably your happiness quotient will go up.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, was her death an easy death or a hard death?
It was an easy death. The other thing my mom did better than most people is she stayed ahead of the curve. A lot of people wait till they fail out. They keep falling in the homes too much, and then eventually
Right.
you have to move to it. She always was a step ahead. She always moved before. She's very proactive that way. And when it came to time to die, getting closer to die, she just, she wanted hospice. So we had
Yes.
a hospital bed put in the living room where my brother was, where she was living with my brother the last few years.
Mm.
And it was a really good death that way. And then before that, she was in a nursing home for a little while. And I remember she couldn't talk as much. She had some small strokes and she couldn't talk as much. And I just hang out with her and we went talk. We'd sing. She could still sing a little bit, but she couldn't
Oh,
talk that much. So we'd sing some songs. I'd play her tunes on my saxophone or recorder, the little wooden flutes, because
yep.
saxophone got a little loud for some of the nursing homes. And
Sure.
we tossed bowls back and forth together. And we
Yep.
just communed the way she was able to commune because she lost her capacity to talk before
Right.
she went to hospice. But even in hospice, she was good. I'd play her music and she'd kind of brighten up a little bit and then she'd conk out again. It was delightful death. She had a great death.
Yeah, I'm going to do a show at some point on hospice and palliative care because it's a big deal.
It is.
And
It's so much better for families.
yeah, and too many people go, poo-poo that as being No, we want all the medical stuff we can possibly have done. And that's never a good death. That's always a bad death.
Yeah, that's right.
Or at least it appears that way. So, Richard, unfortunately, we are out of time. So I thank you for being a guest today. This was kind of fun. I learned a bit, and I thank you for that. And I hope the folks who are watching or listening or whatever you're doing, found this useful. And if you did, leave a comment below and let us know. And if you want to, you can always go and leave a rating and reviewing wherever you see this or listen to it. And if you're interested in being on the show, send me an email at jpatrick@stage2planning.com, and we'll have a conversation to see if you would be a good guest for the Long Strange Trip. So thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.